Hello，有乐芳伙伴午安。那随着我们的年会呢，我们的4周年年会已经进行到如火如荼的第3天喽。那大家还记得今天我们在年会的内容里头要跟大家分享什么样的内容吗？我相信大家呢一定都会看到我们身后我们的这个标题版。对，没错，我们今天叫做 All for One Love， 也就要谈到我们的奖励旅游。那在开始之前，我想问大家，就说你有没有准备好一瓶你最爱的精油陪着你在看这些年会呢？如果有的话，打开来吧，我们一起吸嗅一下好不好？不知道你现在用的是什么精油？我相信哦，很多伙伴跟我一样，现在在用的是我们大家都最喜欢的 Abundance， 对不对？没错，的确，我们很多人在优乐芳，我们都期待着一个丰盛人生。就如同我们所讲的，丰盛人生有很多，丰盛人生包含了你用到好的产品，你有了好的家人伙伴，还有更多你跟我们在一起的珍贵时光。那我相信丰盛人生都是我们在经营事业上面的一个追求。可是我们都知道，在经营事业的这个追求中哦，它有时候并不是那么容易。也就是说，你只要喜欢就分享，它是一个起点。可是坚持下去，那今天我们在今天的活动里头，我们看到很多的伙伴跟我们在一起的珍贵时光。可是在这个时间点呢，他们是怎么样开始？他们是怎么样坚持的？我想要跟各位分享一些东西。那是在2017年，我想2017年那是我有机会很幸运哦，那也是我最后一次跟 Gary 有很近距离的接触。那时候我们就刚好遇见他们在执行一个计划，那个计划叫 Man Up。那主要就是他在对一些男性的伙伴去讲一些跟事业经营相关的东西。那其实也不是真的怎么做事业，怎么进人啊，怎么样用产品，不是，而是在创业的过程中一个心态上面的课程。那在这个内容里头，我听到觉得最感动的一件事，就是我们都知道，在优乐芳里头，我们都需要热情。我也听到很多伙伴常常告诉我们说，我们是很有热情的。可是 Gary 告诉我们，他更明确说了，只有热情是没有用的。为什么？热情就像瓦斯，可是你知道啊，就算你在瓦斯炉上面，你已经装好了瓦斯，你有一个满满的瓦斯桶，你充满满满的热情，可是这个时候需要有东西去把它点燃。那点燃这个热情的东西是什么？我相信就是一个动机，一个 motivation。那这个 motivation 是什么呢？其实有人会告诉我说，我的 motivation 是希望有更多的自由时间，或者是有被动式的收入。但其实我觉得，在听完 Gary 告诉我的东西的时候，我更理解了动机其实是很简单的一件事。动机是你在生活中，你先找到你不想要的东西，然后帮助自己去找到你想要的东西，那么你的动机就会在那边。但我觉得，如果透过我个人讲的话，可能还不是那么仔细。所以在荧幕前的伙伴，当我们在庆祝这些奖励旅游的时候，当你心心念念立定目标，想要这些奖励旅游的时候，那么其实你已经开始准备成为一个经营者，跟着我们进入这个丰盛人生。那在这个时间点的时候，不妨待会我们透过 Gary 的这段影片，让他本人来告诉你说，在优乐芳还有他自己是如何找到一个成就一份这么伟大事业的动机。所以话不多说，让我们用Gary 珍贵的影片来告诉你，我们怎么在这份事业里头找到一份可以持续创业的动机。
We are out by Tabiona, Utah, and we are at the Skyrider Wilderness Ranch with none other than the Gary Young, founder and chairman of the board for Young Living Essential Oils.
Yeah.
He's been kind enough to grant me an interview for the Man Up Project. And the piece we're talking with Gary on is business. There's a very special reason that I've asked Gary to do this part. Where he started Young Living and where it has grown to now. And I'm not going to tell this. I'm going to let this come forth in Gary's own words, because to me, it's nothing short of astounding.
Yeah.
So once you guys hear this story, you'll know why I picked it. So Gary, motivation. I mean, to get where you've gone, obviously takes some sort of motivation and takes some kind of action. When you look at what has motivated you and spurred you into action to get to where you are today, because I think that's part of manning up, is understanding that piece.
It is.
For you, what was that?
Scott, a lot of it for me is intuition.
Okay.
I think in order for any man to step up to the plate and go against the odds, so to speak, or do what other people look at as the impossible, is really, it's all about them and what their dream is, and do they believe in themselves. And I had a couple of motivation factors, and one was I didn't want to ever live like I was raised. I didn't want my kids to live like I was raised. I didn't want them to experience life the way I did. I felt there was more to life. I had a different philosophy, perhaps a different belief, and that was that I didn't believe, as a lot of Christian people do, that God sent me here to be punished. I believe that He sent me here to achieve my full potential. But it was up to me to do that. He didn't say it was going to be easy, but He said it would be worth it. And so there was a lot of factors involved, and so what made the difference for me is I would look at something like the essential oils. When I first discovered them in 1985, the real oils, not the perfume stuff that I got introduced to in 78, but the real oils in Geneva at the university, when I experienced that for the first time, I just felt that there was something here that was a gold mine, that it was something that God had given us, and why it had never been mined, I don't know.
Right.
But that's why I said the intuitive part of it. I just felt intuitive. I didn't know enough to really make an intelligent decision.
Yep.
I just felt in my gut, in my heart, this was the right direction to go. And the opposition was horrible. It was horrible. But once I made up my mind that this was the right direction for me, to heck with everybody else, it was the right direction for me to go in, then I started studying it. I wanted to learn and know everything there was to know about essential oils. That's why I traveled to Turkey and studied GCMS, and I volunteered for years in the fields in France and in Egypt, learning to plant, learning to cultivate, learning to grow, harvest, learning distillation. I didn't feel that I could make a good decision unless I knew everything that I could learn. So part of it was to learn, to research, to study. It's just like, Scott, if you were going to go buy a new chiropractic practice, let's say, you wouldn't just walk in and write the guy a check. You'd want to look at his books. You'd want to look at his client flow. You'd want to look at the fallout. You'd want to look at the retention rate. You'd go through every aspect before you'd decide whether you're going to buy that practice or not.
Right.
You know? And because there was nothing for me to look at, I had to go find it a piece at a time.
Right.
But the blessing of that is that was part of my education. But every time I would go and work in the distillery in France or Egypt, where were the two main places, I'd get more passionate about it because the intuitive feeling just got more intense. And then when I go and I was studying the GC mass spec and analysis and the chemistry part of it, I get more excited again. So when you're on the right track and you start studying it and researching it, that will convince you that you're on the right track, and your passion will grow equivalent. So it's study, research, learn all there is about it, and then start putting together a plan. And this is where I see people lose it, is they'll get excited, they'll study it a little bit, they'll say, maybe I'll try it, maybe I'll try it. Right. And they'll delve into it for a little bit, and this is quite a bit of work, maybe it's not quite what I thought it was going to be. Sure. And they start doubting themselves and start questioning, and they quit. But when you have a dream and you have a passion, and you have an idea that has value, and that was the thing for me. It had to have value for the people of the world, not just me alone. I couldn't get passionate about something just for myself. But when I could see the value it had for the world, it drove the passion. And people say, well, Gary, did you get excited? And I said, yeah, I got excited. But there's a difference between excitement and passion. Excitement is like, I like to refer to it as the igniter on a propane stove. You know, you hold the button down, you strike the match, and the little pilot light comes on. That's excitement.
Yep.
But as soon as you take your thumb off from it, the pilot light goes out. But if you hold your thumb on it long enough for the gas to get there, then it'll ignite the whole unit.
Yep.
That gas coming in is passion. And once that passion ignites, now you got a stove you can cook on, you got hot water or whatever,
Yep.
and it'll continue to burn until you turn it off. And so you use the excitement to ignite the passion.
Gotcha.
And once that's lit, then it's just hang on. But you've got to take it further. You've got to take it to action. And when you go from the study, the research, the identifying of the project and what it is that you're following the path on, and it's all good. But if you don't convert all of that into an action plan, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
So, and that conversion part is where people drop it. Well, Scott, it's some ways, when I think back, it's almost like it's a dream.
Yeah.
You know, I don't spend much time looking back, and I don't spend much time thinking back, but when I do, because somebody asks me a question or we reminisce like we always do a little bit, it's like it's a dream. Because it was a tough start. You know, number one, nobody had ever marketed essential oils in the world before outside of the perfume and fragrance and flavoring industry. It had never been marketed. And when I talked to people about it, they just laughed at me. You know, said, "You're crazy. You can't market something like that." And so there was no real support. Even the person that I was married to at that time, absolutely just, no, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And of course, building a business in the 20th century is not like it used to be in the old days. You know, in the old days, all it took was tenacity and grit, and you could build a business.
Yep.
But now, all the rules and regulations and compliance stuff that you got to go through, it's a lot of money. And I didn't have the money. And so it was just work. And I was a one-man band for 2 years. Take the phone call, package the order, ship it out, mop the bathroom, you know, fill the peanut bin after filling all 6 orders for the day.
Right.
You know, then get on the plane Friday afternoon and fly out to Dallas or Kansas or wherever and do meetings for the distributors, you know, all 20 of them.
All 20 of them.
And I'd generally I'd get out where I could do a meeting on Friday evening. And then I'd take a flight, or a lot of times I would drive. You know, sometimes Nancy and Eldon would meet me, and then they'd drive me to the next town. So we could do a meeting Saturday morning, and then next town to do a different meeting, or a meeting in a different town Saturday evening. And then another one Sunday morning, and then get on a plane and fly back home to take orders Monday morning.
Yep.
And it was a challenge. And while I was doing this, I'm trying to build St. Mary's at the same time. And there was no support from anybody around me. You know, I eventually grew to where I had 2 employees after the second year. And they also would just look at me and say, "You're crazy, this is not going to happen." I think there's a lot of that sort of thing that goes on in everybody's life. And I really believe that's why a lot of people, you know, will have an idea and mature it to a point of starting and then quitting. Because they get the outside feedback, you can't do it, It won't work. This is stupid. You're better to be working a 9-to-5 job. And they give you all this justification. And because we're human, we like other people's approval. So our way of getting that approval is by listening to what they say. And that was where it was different for me. I didn't really care what their opinion was, because they weren't doing it for the reason that I was. It wasn't their project, and they didn't know what I was doing anyway.
Yeah.
So why listen to somebody tell me I can't do it?
And that action piece, and I think some people can even get almost, they get past all the other stuff and into that action, and now that's where it becomes hard.
Yeah.
That's where they get the doubters. Mm-hmm. That's where they get the difficulties of something may not go as they thought it would.
Yeah.
And what helps you, would you say, when you've been talking, alluding to something I think which is really important, which is that purpose piece.
Mm-hmm.
And that purpose piece, how does that help you maintain that action? Even when you go, wow, this is tough.
Absolutely. And that's part of life. And I believe, Scott, just from my experience, it comes back to that self-worth.
Yep.
Because if you don't know who you are, and you don't have a strong ideal about who you are and what you can do, that's when you'll cave in when people start telling you it's crazy.
Gotcha.
Or you can't do it. Because when you start that action plan, nothing ever goes as it was planned.
Right.
And in many cases, it will go almost the opposite way, as if the universe is telling you, okay, you want to try this? Well, take it on, but you're going to find out it's not all that great.
Right.
And I look at that, for me, the tougher it got, the more determined I got.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at it and saying, oh, geez, I can't do this, I look at it and say, watch.
Yeah.
Watch. Because to me, I took it as a challenge, almost a personal challenge that I can do this. And another part for me that really helps drive me is when I see something like that, I say to myself, and this is justification, perhaps, but it works. So you've got to find what works.
Very true. So, Gary, if you had anything else, any other kind of advice to give men in manning up in business, what would that be? This is your time, your floor to say, men, here's what you need to be doing.
Yeah. The number one greatest thing that any person can do, man or woman,
Yep.
is spend time getting to know who you are and developing yourself.
Yeah.
Because that is your greatest investment, is investing in yourself. With that, it develops your self-worth, it develops your character, it develops your commitment. And if you're going to man up to anything, if it's just building a Young Living business, it takes commitment, it takes dedication, it takes time. And along that process, and Scott, you know it because you've done it. Along the way, there's a lot of people saying, you're crazy. I'll bet when you sold your chiropractic practice, there were people saying, have you lost your flipping mind?
Yep.
And, what are you going to do now? And all kinds of things are said. The best thing you can do is invest in yourself, trust in yourself, and live your dream.
I honestly I can't put any better advice out there. And honestly, it doesn't, this is the business section.
Yeah.
But if you do that piece alone, and so many of these things overlap.
Yeah,
all of
they do.
life overlaps. Yeah. If you can do that piece of advice right there, investing in yourself, figuring out who you are, moving forward with yourself, the rest of it falls into place.
Yeah.